It's time to start your morning by taking 5. Here's your host, Matt McMaster.
You're listening to Take 5, quick 5-minute take on the biggest things happening in Nebraska sports. I am your host, Matt McMaster. It is an incredible weekend of sports we have ahead of ourselves. Yesterday was game 1 of the NBA Finals, where the Indiana Pacers stole a game off of the incredible shot of Tyrese Halliburton against the heavily favored Oklahoma City Thunder. They play game 2 on Sunday. Tonight is game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals, where the Florida Panthers look to even up the series at 1 game apiece against the Edmonton Oilers. We have the Belmont Stakes tomorrow, where journalism with a win will become one of the greatest horses of all time without winning the Triple Crown. We also have UFC 316, where Merab Dvalishvili takes on Sean O'Malley for the bantamweight title in their second bout between the two. You also, if you like pro wrestling, have Money in the Bank going on. And then also, of course, the NCAA Tournament Super Regionals will be taking place, where we will decide the field of 8 that will be coming to this great city of Omaha to play in the CWS. But I don't want to talk about any of that. I don't want to speak about any of that. That's why I mentioned all that up front. What I want to talk about is the Women's College World Series. Tonight is Game 7. We will find out who the national champion is in softball tonight between the Texas Tech Red Raiders and the Texas Longhorns. And the reason why I want to talk about this isn't because it's a Game 7, isn't because we're going to find out who is going to be the first national champion in softball in the last 5 years that wasn't named Oklahoma. The reason why I want to talk about this is the impact it could have on women's sport in the future. Because Texas Tech is a 12 seed in the NCAA tournament, but they aren't just any 12 seed. They're a 12 seed that has rode a dominant pitching performance through this Women's College World Series on the back of Najari Kennedy. Kennedy is a former Stanford pitcher. She transferred to Texas Tech this year after receiving $1 million in NIL money. Part of that came from very famous Texas Tech Red Raider alumni Patrick Mahomes, who was at the game yesterday celebrating loud and proud as his Red Raiders forced a Game 7 after losing the first game in very interesting fashion a day earlier. Kennedy gets $1 million. She is on Texas's Tech team. She leads them to a Game 7. And if they win this title tonight, it will be an indication of what happens when you make an investment in women's sport. And I think it is an indication of, and it will confirm to schools, hey, if you invest and if you use NIL to go ahead and invest in women's sports, good things can come to you. Because now it is June. It is the middle of the sport dead season, and we are talking about Texas Tech women's softball. And we know who Najari Kennedy is now. We didn't know who she was. Most people didn't know who she was a couple months ago. Now we know who she is now because of the investment that Texas Tech made. And I think that if you're a school that has a women's sport that you have heavily invested in, you are looking at what Texas Tech did and said, man, look at the impact that one player that we can pay a lot of money can do. And this is not, this conversation is not at all about what male athletes make and what female athletes make. But there are a lot of male athletes who make $1 million, right? Who we invest a lot of NIL bucks into. And there is not as many women athletes that we invest that type of coin into, and I understand the reasons why. But I think that her impact in Texas Tech winning the Women's College World Series is so important for the future of women's college athletics because it'll encourage more colleges out there to go and get themselves a Najari Kennedy, to go and invest in a women's sport they're great at and take them to the next level, to go out and try and find donors for women's sports, because we see now the national stage and the impact it could have on your university when you make that investment, right? There are universities already do that. Man, UConn women's basketball, I'm sure they're dropping a lot of coin. Nebraska women's volleyball, I'm sure they're dropping a lot of coin to I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure, right? We're making that assumption. But I think that Texas Tech winning the title, Najari Kennedy clearly being the MVP of the tournament, could do wonders for the future of this sport, for the future of softball, for the future of women's sport, and the interest. I mean, women's college softball almost got as many people watching it as the Stanley Cup final did, right? When we pay these players a lot of money, when we invest a lot of money into them, when we put them on a pedestal and they reach that pedestal and they play at an incredibly high level and they bring schools within striking distance of winning a national title, that's how we build sports. That's how we build athletes. That's how we build stars. And so I think Texas Tech investing in their softball program, getting Najari Kennedy and having her carry them to a title is so vitally important to the future of women's sports. And that's why I'm talking about it, because I want to give it a spotlight, because we are in a surge and we are in a time when women's sports are getting more and more popular. And as more investments come in, we get more of momentum toward giving it the attention it deserves. And Najari Kennedy and Texas Tech, and Texas, to their credit as well, are getting the attention they deserve. I think it's great. But if Texas Tech wins tonight, that would be the absolute best thing that can happen to not only just softball, but women's athletics, because it encourages more places to invest in the sport. I'm Matt McMaster, and that's been Take 5.